things you must do first, levels. So we can draw walls now, right? Well, not quite. Remember that Revit is a BIM program, but it's also a 3D program. So what does that mean? What does that have to do with drawing walls? Well, if I were to just start drawing a wall now, so I'm going to go to my Home tab in my ribbon, click on the Wall tool. Now, just before I start clicking and drawing, notice what it's asking me for in the options bar. This right here, it's asking me for the level. If you don't have your levels defined, then really who knows where it's drawing it. So it's something that you want to at least loosely define before you get going too far. So that's what we're going to do right now. Now I'm going to hit escape twice and get out of the wall command. Now where can we find levels? Levels are found in elevations and in section views. So if I click on elevations in the project browser, let's go down to the south elevation. So right here you see these things shooting across your screen, and they are the levels. Now, the first thing we like to do is think about the name of the levels. Then we'll talk about the height of the levels. Then we'll talk about the extents of the levels. So let's just zoom in. I'm just going to roll my scroll wheel towards here. And level 1. Now, do I like that? Is that the right term for 0? Well, in essence, it doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want. It has to make sense to you and to your building. In this case, in this scenario of this building, this is actually okay, level 1, level 2. But what we're going to do is we're going to edit it just a little bit, just to make a little bit more sense of it. Now, if we look at this 0, depending on the type of project you're going to work on, you might want 0 to be top of foundation. And in other types of projects, 0 might be top of first floor. So that depends on your industry and the type of building that you're going to be drawing in Revit. So what we're going to do here is we're going to keep this fairly simple today. And let's just call this one top. Just before I do that, I'll turn on the caps lock. Not that you have to, but you can use caps lock or not, or symbols. If I say top of floor 1, just to keep it slightly shortened. And if I don't want it to say top of, maybe I say T dot O dot floor 1, and then I click in the white space. Now it's going to ask me, would you like to rename corresponding views? To this, I can say yes, definitely, and I'll show you why. Instead of having levels in your project browser or views in your project browser called level 1, level 2, you want them to be the same in the project browser as they are on the level. So I'm going to say yes. And you'll notice that everything that was called level 1 is now called top of floor 1. And that's what we want. We want it to make sense, to be corresponding. What about level 2? Well, I'm going to click back in the view and just double click on this. This is only a 1-story addition. So what is that going to be? Well, it's the top of something. It's the top of roof plate, or we could go RF plate. And again, your conventions can be applied here. It's very flexible in how this is named. Would you like to rename corresponding views? Yeah, let's do that. So we've dealt with the name. Well, we've dealt with the name, but you may ask the question, well, what about the west view? What about the north view? What about the east view? Don't we have to do it there as well? Let's take a look. So I'm going to go into the elevations. Then I'm going to click west. Let's just roll our scroll wheel over here and zoom in. Oh, it's been renamed. Let's go north. Yeah, been renamed there as well. So this is what levels are. They establish planes within your building. They're very important and they're very useful because I don't have to rename them in every view, just sort of like typical 2D type annotation. So we've dealt with the name. That's great. It's also named some of our floor plans to start. That's great. What about the height? Well, there's a few ways to approach this. And number 1, see that right there, 10 feet? Let's just double click in that and let's change that to 8 feet. Pretty simple. Change it to 8 feet, it moves to 8 feet. So let's look at how to change the level a second way. Sometimes you have, many times you have more than two levels. You have many floors, you have many key points in the building, and you don't necessarily have a height in mind. So if I click under the Home tab, I'm going to click on Level. Before I click my first point on screen, I'm going to just roll back, scroll wheel. So I'm zooming out, and I'm going to start clicking here on the far left and then go to the far right. Click and then click. Automatically, the levels will want to line up. Let's just zoom in again, and I'll hit Escape twice to end the command. So notice what it does. It says, okay, well, the last one you did was top of floor 1, so I'm going to say this is top of floor 2. Maybe it guessed right, maybe it guessed wrong. The point here is that that height is at 14 feet. So what that's saying is it's a literal height from 0. What if I wanted this distance to be exactly 10 feet or 8 feet again? How would I do that? Well, I could just add up in my head, but if sometimes that gets a little complex when you have lots of values. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the best way. So I'm going to go to the Annotate tab in the ribbon. I'm going to look under Dimension and Aligned. You can also type in DI. No enter, just DI. That will start the Aligned Dimension command. Then you click on the lines. See how they're highlighted? Click, click, and click. Now I may put this dimension right here. My third click is just going to be in free space. It's not selecting anything. It's just somewhere right there. Good. Escape twice out of the command. Now notice this, 8 feet, 6 feet. How do I change that to 8 feet? It's not letting me. I can double click on it, but it won't let me actually change that. Why? We need to click on the level. Now you can see that this dimension is blue. I'm going to click into it and say 8 feet. Enter. And then click outside of it. So we can see here now that we've got 8 feet and 8 feet. Between that is 16 feet. That is the best way to make your levels. Now, we're not going to have another floor on here. We're just going to leave it like this. So let's get rid of that one. I'm going to click on the level and hit the Delete key. And it's telling me that my corresponding floor plan view and ceiling plan view will be deleted as well as the dimension. Some other important facts that we need to know about these levels. These levels, once you have them set, you don't want them to change. So how do we lock them down? Well, there's two things we have to do. Number one, we have to click on the levels. This is similar to reference planes, where you click on the levels or reference planes, and then in the ribbon under Modify Levels, you can find the pin. Click on Pin, and now it'll be hard to move those levels around. Now, as a second security measure, what we're going to do is click on this 8 feet, and we're going to lock that. Before I do that, why? Why are we going to do that? Well, if I click on the level, even though it's pinned, I could change this to 9 feet. Well, it's still pinned, but it got changed. So let's change that to 8 feet. Let's click on the dimension and let's lock the dimension. Now, as we get going, I'm going to explain that what I just did here, locking the dimension, it's very rare that you're going to do that. You only want to do that for very specific cases like this one. So just to review so far, we've used the levels that were there. We've edited them to have names that make sense to us and to the building. We've changed their height. We've pinned them, and we've dimensioned them and locked them. Now, one last thing. That's our building. Those are our levels. Things are a little bit too big right now. We want to make this more concise. How do we do that? Well, we can click on the level, and let's temporarily unpin both of the levels. Now I'm going to click on the level and just carefully click on this N grip and move it to the left. Right about there, let go. So I've just moved it closer to these reference planes, which represent my building, what my building size is going to be. Let's zoom out and do the same on the left-hand side as well. So we've clicked on these levels, and we've brought them to be a little bit more concise in this view. But what about the north view? Well, let's go there. So let's go to the project browser, go to North, double click on that. Oh, I can't see this. What should I do? Well, I'm going to use the zoom tool and type in ZE. There we go, zoom extents. Now we can notice that, yes, the levels have been brought closer to the building, but they're almost too close. So let's click on them again and just refine that a little bit. These levels are like 3D objects. They're like 3D planes cutting right through the entire project. So we will need to just go into each view and just confirm that they're in the right spot. So I'm going to do the east now. And now in the west, behind the scenes, it's being updated. Let's go to west. Again, I can't see it. What should I do? ZE or ZE for zoom extents. Again, it looks like the levels are a little bit too close. Let's just click on that little grip, that shape handle, and move that out. So once we've confirmed that north, south, east, and west all look good for now, now we're going to pin them again. So I'm going to pick on them both, go to the pin those down. Good. So we have our basic levels set up. We're ready to go. We're getting closer to drawing walls. And this is key that we set all this stuff up first, and we'll have a nice, smooth project as we work along on this kitchen addition.